Did you know that 3 billionaires are leading South Africa's political party funding scene? Top political parties are all being funded by the same people. Patrice Motsepe, Martin Moshal, and the Oppenheimer family are the top donors of political parties in South Africa. How do we know this? This is thanks to the Political Party Funding Act, where parties have to disclose who donates to them each quarter. Today I'm joined by Shaylin Clark from My Vote Counts. They have been tracking political party funding. Who is giving money to political parties? And for us, the question is always why. Shaylin, why is it important to track who gives political parties money?
Well, it's important to see who funds our political parties so that we can know where these parties or politicians, where their interests lie. Because it's one thing to ask for people's votes, but are your interests really for the people, or is it for whoever is funding your cause? So this is why My Vote Counts has fought for party funding transparency for about 10 years now. And this has been our flagship work. We've pushed for the amendment of the prior legislation to allow for party funding transparency, and then of course the Political Party Funding Act. And we've came into effect on the 1st of April of 2021. So to date we've had 2 full financial years of party funding disclosure.
And what have we learned so far in the last 2 years?
We definitely have seen that, as you've mentioned, there is a small group of very rich people who are paying our politics, essentially.
Across the board?
Mainly the big parties, but yes, across the board. So as you mentioned, the Oppenheimer family, they are big donors for the Democratic Alliance. Patrice Motsepe, which is a very interesting person, I'll come back to him in a moment. But essentially the 3 big interest areas where donors find themselves in, the mining industry is the biggest sector for private funding, where to date it counts for 22.2% of all private funding, which is about just over 61 million rand from the mining industry. And Patrice Motsepe seems to be director of several companies or organizations that are linked to the mining industry. The second biggest donor interest area is the energy industry, which is very interesting because we have load shedding and all of that. To date, about 54 million private monies came from the energy industry to political parties, and then followed by the gambling businessman Martin Moshal. He spent about 44.5 million rand between Action SA and the Democratic Alliance.
So My Vote Counts is launching a tool called Whose Vote Counts?
Yes.
Talk to us about that tool.
So we are very excited to have this online tool for anybody, for any NGO, civil society to help with their work, but also for journalists, because the IEC releases their disclosures on a quarterly basis. It's in table format, but we decided to take those disclosures and put it into a tool with graphs, beautiful tables, to really make sure that we can see, the links, or draw some links to see wherever there's dodgy dealings happening, perhaps, and just to see any trends that we see in the private funding of political parties. So we put together this tool called Whose Vote Counts, and you will see that we have on top the full total amount of disclosures of private funding. And it's important to note that all of this comes from the disclosures by the IEC. So this only accounts for money of 100,000 rand and above, as mandated by the Political Party Funding Act. You can filter the tool down by parties. So you can, if you just want to see how much the DA, Action SA, EFF received in a particular year, you can filter it down to that. Donation types. So the PPFA, or the Political Party Funding Act, it accounts for donations that are monetary, so actual money, or in kind, so whether paying for a gala event or laptops or bags or whatever. So you can filter down to which donation type. You can filter down to the financial year, and you can filter down to the different quarters, so quarter 1, quarter 2, 3, and 4.
And this is important because this information obviously gets released every quarter, but this tool allows us to track it over time.
That's correct. That's correct. And it will, so this will house all of this information from the beginning of when the Act was came into effect, 1 April 2021, and it will be updated on a quarterly basis by My Vote Counts.
Most big political parties seem to be against this, some aspects of the Political Party Funding Act, particularly the amount for disclosure, 100,000 Rand. They say that this is dissuading donors from giving money to political parties. But My Vote Count disagrees. Tell us about that.
Yes, so we feel that the minimum disclosure threshold, which is 100,000 Rand, so in other words, parties need to disclose to the IEC anything above 100,000 Rand, we feel that is quite high because there could be instances where bribery or any shady dealings can happen below that 100,000 Rand amount. But also, this should speak about transparency. So this, as it is kind of partial transparency, which defeats the purpose of the Act. If we're talking about we want party funding transparency, we need to see every single cent, even below 100,000 Rand, to ensure that this Act is a strong piece of legislation and does what it is supposed to do.
Shaylin, ultimately, what does My Vote Count hope to achieve by launching this tracking tool?
So two things. There is, to have this information for other organizations or voters to have this information to make an informed vote. Because to make an informed vote at the ballot box means you need to have all information at your disposal to make the correct decision. So we are hoping that this, as it is laid out on the tool, will help people make that decision to see where their preferred parties, where their interests lie, and if they agree with this interest, or where if they agree where they get the money from. Then there is journalists. I mean, this is really, journalists or media is really important to bring out this information. So it's really important for journalists just to have this information, just to try and make the links between any potential dodgy relationships between parties and donors, because we've seen, for instance, the Gwede Montash and that Shell Link company, Batu Trust, who donated millions to the ANC across two quarters, I believe it is, and other examples as well involving Martin Moshal, Russian-linked oligarchs, etc., etc. So it is really important to have this information to make better assessments and judgments between the donors and political parties.
Shaylin Clark, thank you so much for your time. My Vote Counts is launching Whose Vote Counts, a tracking tool to help you and I understand who is funding South Africa's democracy, so we can ask the question, why?